Welcome to my latest factorio tutorial. Today I'm going to tell you how to set up and configure a headless server running on a Windows or even a Linux server. First, I'm going to tell you what a headless server even is, and after that we will go over some more things to consider. Once we got that out of the way, we will take a look at the setup process on Windows and after that on Linux. But what even is a headless server? Technically speaking, it's a computer which is running non-stop, usually with specialized hardware, which is better suited for such an operation. It also isn't directly connected to any display, keyboard or mouse, thus making it headless. Servers like that are used in all sorts of applications, like for serving the video you're currently watching, all the way to weather forecasting or traffic control. And we can use such a server to run a factorio instance on, similarly to what I showed in episode 5 of my complete factorio tutorial series about multiplayer. You technically can run factorio normally on such a server, but that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. This is why you can start factorio as a headless server. This means factorio will automatically load a map and host a game, but it won't load any graphics or sounds. There will also be no player in the game that belongs to the server. Depending on the configuration, the server will also pause the game if no players are connected. Now you and your friends can just connect to the server as normal. You will need a separate computer or server to run the headless server on. If you want to use your own computer, then you can also host a game normally, as I showed it in the 5th episode of my complete factorio tutorial series. Please remember that with the way factorio multiplayer works, every connected client needs to do all the computation, so you can't outsource the calculation of your megabase to an external server. The server will also need to calculate everything, so it needs the same compute performance as your PC. If the server is too slow, the UPS will drop for everyone who is connected. That's why the hardware requirements are fairly similar to the normal version of the game, so a dual-core or quad-core CPU and 4 to 8 gigs of RAM should be ideal depending on the map, the number of players and used mods. On Linux servers that are only running the factorio server, you might be able to get away with a weaker CPU and less RAM. A graphics card isn't required at all. You will also need a 64-bit operating system because factorio isn't compatible with 32-bit anymore. If you want to run the server from the comfort of your own home, then you can use any computer you have laying around for that task. The easiest way to join such a server would be to enter it into the public server list, but that requires you to enter your username and password or token into a config file. If you don't want to use the public server list, then you will need to set up some port forwarding on your router. Alternatively, there are tools like Hamachi or Evolve, which make this unnecessary, but they need to be installed on the server as well. It might just be the easiest way to host a dedicated or virtual server from one of the countless services available online. With that, you usually get a static IP address to use that's also conveniently available from the internet without any port forwarding. This also means that hackers have an easier time, so you really have to look into securing your server if you want to do this. Servers that are hosted like this are also usually running Linux, so you might want to watch some tutorials on that as well if you're not comfortable with it. You also have to look a lot into the hardware configurations that various services offer. Just remember that you get what you pay for, and things that sound too good to be true are probably just that. Everything that offers vCPUs may be a problem with bigger and megabases. 4 GB of RAM are probably fine for a normal setup. Just remember that factorio doesn't really take advantage of many CPU cores, so 4 would be the maximum I'd be comfortable paying for. If you run into issues, some hosters also let you upgrade or downgrade the server's hardware if you need to. Just to recap, reusing an old but still powerful enough computer can be a great and easy way to play factorio in your home network and over the internet. But it also might be easier to host a server in the cloud, but finding the perfect deal can take quite a while if you're unexperienced, and setting it up in a secure way can also be quite complicated. Doing this will also be a lot more expensive than the bit of electricity you might have to pay for when reusing an old computer. Now that we got all of this out of the way, we can finally focus on setting up a headless server on Windows. For the purpose of this video, I'll be using Windows 10, but this will work pretty much the same way on any other recent version of Windows, as long as you're running the 64-bit version. Alright, so let's talk a bit about creating the headless server now on Windows. So what we're going to do here is now, first we obviously have to download like the entire game. So here I have like Factorio server, which is essentially just the server that I downloaded here, not headless, but from here on the website. So you have to have a Factorio account for that, and then you will download the MS Windows 64-bit zip package here. And then you can go into your folder, you can unzip that, and then you have like this folder structure here in there with already quite a few of files in there. So if you already have downloaded the game and played on that machine, on that computer before, then that's also probably fine. You can also just use that, but we will have to go into some different files and edit some different stuff now. Okay, so first we have to generate a map. So we have to, either way, you can just launch like bin x64 factorio.exe here, and you can create your map normally that way. But we can also just go in here in the data, and then on the map gen settings and map settings, both of them with like the example. So we are going to just copy the first one, remove that, and also remove the .example part, and now we're going to edit that. You can open it with like the normal notepad, but I'm just going to do that with notepad ++ here. Okay. So in here we now have some map settings that you're probably already familiar with. Also the same that you will see later on in the Linux part. So down here you have like your entire like settings for frequency, size, and richness. Up here you can then see which frequencies, or like what different levels there are that you can set basically. Then there are like some different things in here fairly similar to what you would also find in a normal GUI. Just so we can then see everything, we can just edit something in here. We can then just go ahead and save that. Alright, so that's the map gen settings. So now we also want to do the normal map settings. Again, also with the same way, also with Notepad++ again. Alright, so in here, also again, pretty normal stuff. I'm just going to edit that and set the price multiplier to 1000 or whatever, so we see the effects of that one. But you can also set like pollution, enemy evolution, expansion, stuff for like unit groups, which goes to a bit more detail than what you would find in a GUI. Same for like steering stuff and pathfinding stuff that you can also customize in here. Yeah, you can just read through all of that a little bit and set everything the way you want it to be set. I think I forgot to say that alternatively you can obviously also use like a normal save file you already have. Yeah, so now we're just going to open, I'm like on another drive, so let's just do that, and then we are going to do cmd. That should hopefully work now. Yeah, now we're in the right directory. I always seem to have problems and troubles with the normal command cmd thing to go into like a folder that's not on the C drive. Yeah, so let's just run the Factorio thing then. So for that we can change our directory. We can go into Now it's doing weird stuff. Int like that, yeah. Yeah, actually we don't have to change the directory, we can also just run it from here. Factorio.exe and then create, and then in the saves folder, very important on Windows, always backslashes. I'm always messing that one up. And then just let's call that server.zip or something. Yeah, so now I forgot to also add like the settings files we just created. So now it would create like one with the default settings, I would believe. So let's go in here. It's still doing its thing. Okay, so server.zip. So you can see I already also have a few other ones in there, but that doesn't matter. Alright, second try. So now we're also going to add --mapgen settings. There's like no autocomplete for that, sadly. Mapgen settings. And then from data /, very important, our map gen, oh no, what is it doing right now? Let's try that again. Map gen settings from data /map gen settings.json and map -settings from data /map -settings.json, and that should hopefully create a nice save file now for us. So it's doing its thing, creating a new map. Yeah, that's also a little bit faster obviously now. Just yeah, well, because the map is no smaller, we have to create. Okay, so now we have our save file. So now it's time to also take a look at our map, not our server settings. So we're also going to copy that. And then we're just going to also rename that one again and edit that again. So in here we can now set all the different server settings. So the name, for example, like test server description for testing, some tags, some stuff. Yeah, there are a lot of options in here, but they're all pretty well explained. So I'm not going to go over all of them. I also talked a bit more in depth about some of them in the 5th episode, I think, of my complete tutorial series about multiplayer, which is also linked here in this video, like in the description and the info cards. So how many players are allowed to connect at once and stuff like that. So now visibility. Public would be the public server list. I don't want it to be visible via that, so I'm just going to say false. LAN, so that's a local network. I want to keep that at true. So if you want to be able to find the server from the public server list, then you obviously have to keep that at true, and you have to enter your Factorio account's username and password. So just the account that we used to sign in earlier to download the game, essentially. You can also go to your profile there, and then you can have a token there, the authentication token. So you can enter that in here instead of the password. Yeah, and then there's just some other stuff in here that we're not going to mess with today. So we're also going to save that one. And that's basically it pretty much. Now we want to just create a batch script in here for starting the server. So we're going to do a new text document. Let's just call it start-server. I clicked too many things again. Okay. So you could also just, when you have like the Windows setting enabled that you can always see all the file extensions. You could directly go into here and change that to .bat for a batch file. But we're just going to go with the normal way now. So we're going to go in here, open it normally, and now we're going to type in a neat little command. So, geez, backslashes, god damn it. And factorio.exe. Then we want to again start a server with saves/server.zip. Yeah, so the server settings, that's in data server dash settings .json. Yeah, and then there's some other stuff you could do, but I'm just going to pause the game right now. Oh, not the game, but the bash script, so the window stays open. Alright, yeah, that should be pretty much it. We're going to go to File, Save As, and down here you say all files or whatever, and then you can change the .bat back there. But I'm replacing that, and I'm doing that. Yeah, I know. And now we can run this. And it is starting. Let's see. Does it work? Let's hope so. It's doing some stuff at least. Let's put it that way. And it seems like it's booted up now. Yeah, there it is. Almost got a heart attack there. So, waiting for the server to save the map. Yeah, geez, that is a little bit on the slow side, but here we are. Server's running. That's all that counts. Alright, and then again, in here you can see that I joined the game. You can also say hi and stuff like that. So, yeah, when we like stop this thing again, then that's bad and the server isn't responding anymore. So you should use a proper command to stop the server. Alright, and that's pretty much it, I would say. So, yeah. Now let's take a look on setting up a headless server on Linux. For the purpose of this video, I'll be using Ubuntu 18.10. But this will work pretty much the same way on most other distros, as long as you're running the 64-bit version. So let's install the headless server on Linux then. So I'm running a Ubuntu. So I also am logged in to SSH with another user, so not root, just so you know. It's always better for security to use different users for different stuff. Yeah. Alright, so let's just create a directory here first, and we want to do that in srv, which is for all server stuff, Factorio server. Alright, that's the folder we will install the Factorio server in, basically. Let's also do a chown here. So I'm actually also owning this directory. Alright. So now we have that set up. So now we can just change our directory and go in there, have a look, and everything's pretty empty still. So we essentially now have to download all the headless server files. So we can do that by going onto the official Factorio website. So that's factorio.com. And then there are like these three big buttons: download, buy game, and get t-shirt. But we want to tick that little button, download headless. So we can then download all the headless servers for various versions. But we're just going to take the newest one. So now you can just do like a right click on that, and you can just copy the link of that, or you can open that in a new tab and grab the link out of there, which is what I'm going to do right now. And now we can go back into PuTTY here, and we can just do wget for this thing. So we need everything with like the Linux 64 at the end. This may take a little while depending on your internet connection, because now we essentially just downloaded the tar file, or like the file for this thing. So doing ll, or when you're not running Ubuntu ls, then you will, or ls-l for that nicer list view, you will see that we just downloaded the file successfully. So now we're going to use tar to unpack that file. So tar dash lowercase x, uppercase j, and a lowercase f. And then we want to take the name of the thing which is downloaded, which is Linux 64, which should hopefully work, and decompress something here. Let's see. Yeah, so now we have a factorio folder. Now we can just delete the file we just downloaded again, and we can also just go into the factorio folder, and we can directly see that we have a bin and a data folder, and also like a config path file. Alright, so first thing before we can create our, or start our server basically, is we have to get a save file. So the thing with creating a save file is you can just take one that's already existing, so you can just copy it over using like SFTP or FTP or whatever. And then you can create like a new folder in here called saves, and you can just put the save file in there that you generated on your PC, that you may already played on or whatever. But we're going to make a new one. So we're going to go into our data thing here. And in here now we have some example config files. So we have like in here for the map gen settings, for map settings, and also server settings. It's a whitelist, which we're going to talk about in a second here. But the first two files are now the interesting ones. So we're going to edit these two. So I'm going to just use nano as a text editor, and we're going to go into mapgen settings example.json. So now in here we do have quite a bit of config stuff. So up here they just write down how we can specify all of these values down here. So we can do them as like none, very low, low, normal, high, high, and very high. Then we can do some different settings here that you might already be familiar with from the normal GUI. I mean, some of the stuff obviously looks a little bit differently in here. But that's basically lots of stuff. So you can do, for example, like all the frequency, size, richness for all your different ores and your different stuff in here. What I'm just going to do right here, because that's easy to, dang it, console. I always just try to use like the numpad in here, but that just doesn't work. Yeah, we're just going to limit the width and height of the map here, just so we have something that we can easily see that all of this worked. Okay, so now we're going to do Control and O for writing that file out. I'm just going to delete this .example part here though, so we can have that as a secondary file. So now yes, and then Control and X for exiting this thing. So now we still have to do the same thing with the map settings. Exactly. Alright, so in here we have some other settings now. For example, like our recipe and technology difficulty and our technology price multiplier. I'm also going to edit that a little bit so we can also see that effect and see that this file actually worked. So you have like your enemy expansion, enemy evolution, stuff in here. You have some more things in here that aren't exposed in a normal GUI. So you can do some like steering stuff or pathfinding things in here that you can also set, but I wouldn't bother touching that. So again, Control O, and then saving this out without the settings. And yes, different name, Control X for exit. Now we see that there are 2 new files that we just created, basically. Alright. So now we can go out of this thing, and we can create a new directory called saves. Yeah, that definitely worked. So now in there we want to save our save file. Okay, so let's create a save file then. So we want to run essentially the factorio program. I mean, it's Linux, you can't say factorio exe. So that's the command to start that. So now we want to add -- and create, because we want to create a new save game. Now we want to specify where this should be saved. So let's just say saves and then like server.zip. You can call it however you want, but you should always keep this .zip at the end. So now we have to say where our map gen settings are. So just map gen settings, and I already typed something wrong there. So map gen settings, specify where this is stored. So that's in data map gen settings.j. Doesn't seem to auto-completed. Yeah, no. Alright. And then also our map settings. Map-settings. Again in data and map settings.json. Alright. So now that's everything. Pressing enter, and you can see that I have a little problem here. So it says down here, error technology price multiplier must be below 1000. Okay, so I went a little bit overboard with that. So that was in a map settings.json. Yeah, I went with 10,000, but that is a little bit too high apparently. So let's just write that and save that and try this again. This looks a lot better. Yeah, so that just created our map. So now we can take a look in saves, and now there's our server.zip, which we just created. Awesome. So now we have to configure like the server settings as well. So for that we go back into data, and now we have like our server settings example.json. So now we want to also edit that one, again with nano in my case. I mean, like the real Linux pros would probably use like V, but I'm not a Linux pro. So server settings example.json. So now in here you can do a lot of stuff. For example, up top here, the name of the server. So let's just call this test-server, description of the game, blah blah. Let's delete that out. It's a server, so you can also do some tags in here. You can specify maximum of players, visibility. So that's kind of important. So I also want this server not to be visible on my public network, on my private network, not on a public one. So we're going to delete the true out of there, and we're going to enter false in the publicity for public, or in the visibility for public. You can also do false on both, and then you can only access the server with the IP. So with a public true, you can find the server via the public server list. But if you set that to true, you also have to enter your factorio username and password in here. Alternatively to the password, you can also use an authentication token instead of the password down here, so you can get that when you sign into your Factorio account on the Factorio website, and then there you can go onto your profile and there you can get that as well. Yeah, but that's only required if you want to have the server public. You can also specify a game password, so that's when you want to join. And all the other settings really should be more or less the same to what you see when creating a server with the GUI, like when you want to just set a normal server up through your game. Yeah, and everything is also pretty nicely explained in here, so let's just save this again without the example, and yes, and I entered a line there, X, no, okay, LL, and now there's also our server settings. Yeah, you could also specify like a whitelist or something there with the server whitelist, but I'm not going to go over that now. I'm just going to go out of this thing here again. Alright, so now what you can also do is, at this stage you can also now upload your mods. I'm going to, oh yeah, so because we started the game now, we also have like the mods folder in here created, and that would also create like the saves folder if this wouldn't be there already. So yeah, now we can also upload some mods to the server. So alright, so now I uploaded my my mods here. So we can see the mods folder is now full with all the different mods I have. So I'm doing that just pretty simple. I just copied over essentially the entire mods folder of my Factorio game. So just to make sure that, yeah, all the mod config is definitely the same as on my client. Because mods always have to be the same on server and client, so that's just the easiest way of doing that. You can also get your download links and download all the zip files and everything. Then you probably have to go into the mod list and settings.json and the .dat, and you do some stuff in there, but I'm not going to bother with that. I'm just copying everything over. Okay, so now we can technically just run the server. So we can go bin x64 and Factorio, and we probably want to slash in there as well. And now the command to start the server is pretty simple, -- start server. Now again our saves file, saves.server.zip, or however you call that. Our server settings are in data server, dang it, server settings.json, yeah. And that's pretty much it. We can run the server. You see it's doing some stuff and it already booted up. So we can go to Factorio now, multiplayer, play on LAN, and there she is. We can join our test server. So yeah, you can see the map is definitely limited. Going into here, research is definitely fairly expensive. Yeah, this map is definitely pretty small. Also has absolutely no water on it, so that's kind of great. Alright, so that's already working, which is pretty nice. But the issue would be now that you can, oh yeah, we also can see I joined the game and everything. So now we have kind of our server console on here. We could also write out stuff here. So now the issue would be if I close that putty window, the server would stop forcefully without saving the game or anything. So that's a little bit of a problem. Because, well, the server is supposed to be running all the time, right? So not only when I'm connected to it via putty here. And that's just basically a problem that the server is now kind of attached to my console session, you could say. I'm not a Linux pro, but that's I think how that works. So let's just stop the server here now. I just did that with Control-C. There should be probably also a better way. And now factorio, yeah, server quit the game. So yeah, now we can do something about that, luckily. So what we're going to do to fix that is we're going to write two scripts here. One of them for starting the server and one of them for stopping the server. Alright, so let's just do nano and then run.sh for the script to start the server. So the command no hub is basically doing that, at least in my version of Ubuntu. But in other Linux distros, there's probably another command for that, maybe even the same one. And yeah, then we are essentially just going to type our entire server command. I should have copied that. Server.zip, and then Scheiße. Alright, so server settings. So these are in data/server-settings.json. So now I don't know why, but we have to also do the and symbol here at the end now, which probably has some important reason. Yeah, I'm again not a Linux pro, but yeah. So now we also want to modify the Linux permissions on that, because now we created a script, but if you create a script in Linux, then that's not executable per default. So we're going to add the execution bit plus x on run.sh. Alright. And now that's green. I should have maybe showed that before that command. But then this would be just a normal white file and not a green script thing. And now we're going to do the same for our stop script. So that's pretty simple. So we're just using the pkill command on factorio. So that's the name of the process. So yeah, there are different ways of ending a process in Linux, not in factorio. Yeah, but pkill sends the process like a nice signal, like, hey, you might want to think about shutting down, and then factorio says, yeah, but let me just save first, and this and that. Yeah, you could also do something like kill-9, but that would just end the server in a not so nice manner, and then the server wouldn't really save the file and everything. So pkill is the way to go, and let's save that. Yeah, so now you see that is white down there. I want that thing, and now that's green as well. So now we can run these. So /run.sh, and you can see nothing really seems to be happening here on the surface, which is great. Now this obviously also has to work, which it doesn't. Maybe that's why nothing is happening. I don't know. Let's take a look at top to, yeah, that's kind of the Linux task manager, right? So I mean, usually there should be factorio pretty much at the top of this, so something doesn't really look right. Let's take a look in, did we also execute the right script? Yeah. Let's see, no hub, and then bin x64 factorio start server data. Yeah, there's no server zip in the data thing. So saves/server zip, server settings, that looks fine though. Alright, so let's write that out. And let's run this again. So yeah, now there's actually something happening, and I can already see that the server popped up. So we can just hit enter now, and we could just go about our normal life. And we can also connect to the server again. Yeah, so that looks kind of nice, doesn't it? So now there's no way I'm aware of that we can actually interact with the server now here from the Linux shell. So yeah, that's the negative point of doing it that way. Maybe there's a way that I'm not really aware of, but yeah, well, if you look into the top here, yeah, you can see there's like Factorio now at the top here, pretty much, using like 3% and 2% of CPU and memory and stuff. So yeah, it's something is happening, definitely. So that's pretty nice. And now we can go in and also stop the server again with our, with our stop script. And now server quit the game, and we can save the game or also quit the game. And that's kind of everything about setting up a headless server on Linux. That was already everything I have to tell you about this topic. If you still have questions, then feel free to ask them in the comments down below. If you learned something new, please leave a like and also subscribe, so you don't miss out on any new videos and tutorials. Feedback is also always appreciated. Have a great time. See you all next time.